Welcome to my first voiceover of a time-lapse. What I'm doing right here is doing a block-in where I rough out polygonal shapes of straight lines to form the overall form of the character. As you can see, I am slowly refining the lines till they become round, and I will be deleting lines and moving proportions around using the cutting tools till everything looks right to me. I have this image next to the original picture, so I constantly compare and measure the, the line shapes between each other. I use the color red because it is very bold here, and using black on white is kind of tiring on the eye. Sometimes I'll draw on black because it's the traditional drawing. When you draw with a pencil, it's actually more of a gray, or charcoal's more of a black too. So, but with digital, the white is kind of harsher on the eye. Now, I am also, if you notice, there are very uh, light lines in here, and they sort of indicate some of where the shadows are and dividing areas of where shadows will be. There is a fair amount of detail in this stage because I always like to indicate where the lines for shadows start. Um, this is sort of a mistake right here because I start off doing shadows on a white background, and this basically will force me to do multiple layers of shadows to get it, and I found out the hard way that this didn't work too easily. And then I go to a mid scale where there's a gray color, and then I do blacks on whites, and I didn't like this method because the final picture's on a black background, so it was easier to just go straight white and grays on a black background. I leave the red lines from which I drew earlier, and they were cleaned up to a certain degree so I could see where to put the rough shadows in and the rough shape of the thing. The proportions are already done, so I don't have to worry about that at this stage. It's not good to do that later on because with all the shadows, it's hard to move things around. Here I am using large brushes, and I'm using the smudge tool to blend in the shadows to get a large amount of range of colors. I'll constantly turn the lines on to check that I'm getting the shapes correctly. And but once all the main forms are there, I will not use the red lines anymore at this part. This part does take me quite a while. This is time lapse I sped up at least 2 times. I'm not sure how much the speed per drawing is in Procreate, but you'll kind of see it. One of the downsides about drawing in Procreate with the smudging is it tends to make everything look very muddy. So I have to keep kind of redoing the shadows to get this sort of blended, layered look to it. And there's probably a more efficient way, but I'm still relatively new to Procreate. What I like to do is I smudge all the shadows up, and then I will layer on lighter colors with a sort of directionality in my stroke. This kind of gives a nice, realistic look to things, and it's a little bit more interesting than just only shadows only. What's really cool about the picture itself is there's a lot of areas where it's just straight up black. There is literally no detail, and there's little hints of highlights like around the cheek, around the hair, and then that high contrast is very interesting to me. And it's repeated throughout the entire painting, so it's I think it makes everything blend together very nicely. And that's what drew my attention to this picture to begin with. The overall coat is looking pretty good right now. I'm going in with a much smaller brush now to just tighten up all the forms, add some minor details I might have missed. There is a fair amount of detail left on the left shoulder, not the left shoulder, but around the elbow area that I'm tweaking right now. And I'm slowly drawing and smudging to get this very smooth look. But the smudging looks very, very weaker, so it's more controlled. And I'm pushing the rim lighting on the left arm, and basically just tightening up all the little details to get rid of some of the drawings. I just did a major liquefy on the upper shoulder. Liquefy is nice to do if you notice, you're not drawing the right angles or the proportions are a little off. But I still like to get the main proportions done in the beginning. All right, just still more refining to get more of a three-dimensionality. Basically, gradients create a curvature in whatever shape you're doing. So from black to white gives it a round look. When you have a sharp contrast, such as in around the shoulder where it goes to black to white, it's more of a harsh form. And I don't use that too much, but it depends on what you're looking at. Just more and more revisions to this area. I like to work around the entire painting when I'm drawing rather than just one area, because it gives it a more uniform look after you're done. I find it makes all my art pieces look very consistent. Whereas if I just did all the detailing in the beginning, I have a feeling you'd have the wrong proportions or something, like the details would be more detailed in the face and not in the rest of the body. So when I work around the painting like this, I pretty much get all the areas pretty well. I'll always miss some area and it'll drive me crazy when I look at a piece in the future. There's a meme about that where a person is drawing something and he looked at it the next day. First day it looks like Michelangelo's David. Next day it looks like it's all melted. And I get that all the time when I draw. That's part of the reason why I don't draw everything all in one day. I always like to look at it the next day with fresh eyes. I'm pushing shadow values a lot more here. And I'm using some fancier brush in the smoke area, like a textured brush. Textured brushes are very fun. Once I get better with them, I'll use them more because they go over nice the smoothed out areas just to give it a little bit more, less digital look. Digital always looks kind of blurry to me compared to drawing in real life with charcoals and pencils. Now, there is an error in here I didn't realize till I posted it on Instagram, is the fillet trim, which is the area between the nose and the lips, is off kilter. And when I posted it Instagram, I posted it that way. And then I looked at it later on, it was driving me crazy. And Instagram doesn't let you edit that. So I did update that in this video and for other places. Now, I just added some color. The blue is a Verdascio method, which is dead skin. It lets me slowly add colors like oranges, and I'm using different screening methods of layering to see what works best. And it looks like I'm cleaning up some of the red because it was a little sloppy the way I did it. That's why you constantly see that blurry area. I'm using clipping mask, so that's why it's very sloppy, but the way I draw, I have layered colors, and it clips off those areas that I don't want, which is really hard to do in real life, but it's really easy with these digital, and I love it. It looks like I'm probably just refining some areas here and just playing around with colors till I get it to look kind of the way I want. I could wish I could have his music in the background here, but YouTube's probably very anal about that. And basically, with the Verdaccio, which I mentioned earlier, you pair it off with like blue or green versus oranges, and you'll get these very live looking colors afterwards. And you use, I believe, a normal layer to get it to work. Sometimes you can use a color layer to get it to work. You got to play around with it. There's no set in stone rule for this kind of stuff. All right. Um, this is looking pretty good. This is close to about where I ended it. I'm just guessing I just cleaned it up a little bit more. I can't even see what I'm doing at this point. Usually when I'm drawing, I am zoomed in a lot, so it doesn't really show up well in these time lapses. And just cleaning up areas because, like, adding different colors of shading. Basically, the red's not just one color. I might have like warmer colors or colder colors in certain areas just to make things look a little more interesting. Uh, Now the skin looks very close to done. Um, Still messing around with that red color here. I remember the red was very hard to get the right color red compared to what he wore. And the smoke, I kind of just played around with it, so it was something a little different. Uh, it was kind of impressionistic. All right, this is almost done. So I fixed the little fillet trim underneath the nose, unlike in the Instagram one. If you like this content, subscribe content and comment below, and I'll make some more videos in the future.